Live from Dublin and around Ireland, theatre takes centre stage. Streaming live and focusing on the issues, the art, the craft, the makers. News, hot topics, and artist features. From theatremaker.ie.
Tonight I'll be talking with Aideen Howard from the National Campaign for the Arts about their meeting on Monday with the Government and Arts Council. We'll be considering the update on safety guidelines and planning for the next stage of reopening. We'll then be joined by Dylan Coburn Gray, the writer behind Malaprop's Before You Say Anything, running at this year's Dublin Fringe Festival. We'll be talking about the task of the writer within a devising process and what it's like having a show premiere at Dublin Castle. Finally, I'll be speaking with Colley and Fionnuala Gygax about their Fringe piece 2050, supported by Fishamble's DUETS initiative. Also on tonight's show, 3 of FringeLAB's artists at work, Timothy O'Mahony, Orla Graham and Kirby Thompson. And finally, Witt Tarantino. I'm Kelly O'Doherty and this is Stage Door Live for the 2nd of September 2020. Hello again and welcome to Stage Door Live episode 20. Tonight we're bringing you more extensive, in-depth coverage of the Dublin Fringe Festival, which officially kicks off this Saturday. Before we get into some exciting Fringe previews, let's take a look at what's been happening in the news. Last Saturday marked 6 months since the first occurrence of COVID-19 in Ireland, and its effects on theatre and the arts are still being discovered. Last month, Phase 4 of the country reopening was postponed until the 13th of September after a spike in cases as the country eagerly awaits an easing of restrictions and a return to business as usual. Music events and gigs with larger audience numbers are being considered. However, it is likely that if they are given the green light, there will also be... guys, I've got some technical difficulties here. It is likely that if they are given the green light, there will also be a ban on alcohol sales at these events. Minister Catherine Martin said, "I hope it will assist everyone in developing a better understanding of how we can move forward and strike an appropriate balance between protecting our public health in an effort to ensuring events of greater numbers than current restrictions inside and outside can take place where possible." Minister Martin was also involved in an important Monday morning meeting with the National Campaign for the Arts. Martin was joined by Minister Stephen Donnelly, Department of Health, Dr. Ronan Glynn, Acting Chief Medical Officer, and their officials, along with Arts Council Director Maureen Kennelly. The meeting provided an opportunity for both sides to hear and consider concerns around the initial and ongoing impact of COVID-19 on the sector and public health. Acting Chief Medical Officer Ronan Glynn stated that the arts have a phenomenally important role to play in keeping us together as a nation. Both the NCFA and the Arts Council will be meeting with the Department of Media, Tourism, Arts, Culture, Sport and the Gaeltacht later this week to follow up on Monday's meeting and will include discussion of the arts sector input to the Roadmap for Resilience and Recovery. Minister Martin noted that she intends to establish a dedicated task force for the arts and culture sector in the coming week and will soon announce the details of support packages from the July stimulus package. In programming news, Lip Sync Theatre have announced the premiere of their new experimental film, Talking Tarot, written and directed by artistic director Zorini Myler. Talking Tarot explores the supernatural in the everyday and the everyday in the supernatural. That will be streaming on Lip Sync's YouTube channel on October 15th at 8 p.m. This Sunday, the final performances of Shiva Productions' The F Word will be performed in St Anne's Park, Raheny. The performance consists of two 10-minute long pieces, Forgiveness by Owen Fitzpatrick and Food of Love by Lorna Kelly Dalton. It will be performed at 2 p.m, 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. Audiences are encouraged to wear masks and bring seats and umbrellas. Culture Night is fast approaching, which you'll know if you keep up with our associate producer Janice de Bruy's weekly blog Beyond the Pale. In Cork, Conal Creedon has been announced as this year's Culture Night Cork City Ambassador, while playwright Katie Holly has been named Cork County Ambassador. There will be exciting events and performances taking place across the country with offerings from a number of familiar faces from Stage Door Live, including New Abu Bakr from Bare Cheek Theatre Company, Irene Kelleher and Smashing Times. And last night, Kirkos Ensemble, a Dublin-based music group, kicked off their Biosphere project, which is described as a radical set of free outdoor-based experimental encounters, from sound art to pop-up concerts to installations and interventions. All of the events take place outdoors, and in light of the newest COVID-19 event restrictions, Kirkos have decided to stream the full programme online. And to finish up our news this evening with some international headlines. Last Saturday, hundreds of arts workers gathered at London's South Bank to protest the roughly 1,000 planned job cuts at major arts institutions, including the National Theatre and the South Bank Centre. Paul Valentine, a South Bank worker and branch chair of the Public and Commercial Services Union, said, "We feel the government has let us down. Obviously, to the public, 1.5 billion sounds like a lot of money, but really that's not going to the people who need it." This protest is just one of a number of large-scale protests which have been happening in London. Critics of the widespread redundancies in London arts and cultural venues are concerned about the detrimental impact that will be had on staff diversity. Many people are demanding that the National Theatre rehire its original casual staff in the future with better conditions and no more zero-hour contracts. In other news from the UK, after a 7-week wait, cultural organisations and creative workers in Scotland finally have confirmation of how funding granted to the Scottish Government in early July will benefit the sector. The £59 million package will be administered by Creative Scotland and includes a £15 million allocation to the Culture Organisations and Venues Recovery Fund, which will be available to theatres, comedy and music venues, dance companies, orchestras, galleries and nightclubs. With many criticising the slow response and lack of clarity around availability and eligibility, Scottish Culture Secretary Fiona Hyslop said the government had taken time to work closely with and listen carefully to the sectors to understand exactly what they need. In Wales, the Cardiff-based Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama is facing legal action from 2 former students. The American students, known only as A and S, are among an alleged 16 women assaulted by a male student at the centre of the accusations. Their claim contends that the college failed to protect them from sexual assault and that the institution failed to follow protocol in its own safeguarding policies. They also assert that the college failed to notify police immediately after the first claim was made, and claims that the college failed to enforce the assailant's 2-week suspension, which was given to him after complaints from the other 15 women had been filed. To finish up our international news this week, the first female artistic director of the Théâtre du Châtelet, Ruth Mackenzie, has been fired over bullying allegations. Mackenzie told The Guardian that she had been informed that 2 of the marketing staff were unhappy with her management style. However, French media were informed by an anonymous source that the real reason for her dismissal was due to management and financial issues, and that she had allegedly created a €3 million deficit. Mackenzie says that she tried to make the Châtelet a theatre for all citizens, not just professionals, and that in France the idea of diversity, of giving power to new artists and a new audience, is provocative. The Théâtre du Châtelet declined to comment. And finally, we were very sad to report the death of Sean Stafford. member of the board of directors and former actor and director in Antairc Theatre, Galway. Sean was active in Antairc from 1948 and attended his son Willie Stafford's production of Aran an Bhuineán Bhuí last February. Marvel's Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman also passed away at age 43 after a 4-year battle with colon cancer. Boseman was best known for his role as T'Challa, King of Wakanda, also known as Black Panther. That's all the time we have for news this evening. Check in with us tomorrow at theatremaker.ie for our weekly blog, The News That Didn't Make It. If we missed anything, please do send us your press releases and suggestions to news@theatremaker.ie or slide into our DMs on social media. A big thank you to everyone who has joined our Patreon community. Your support is invaluable. For as little as €5 per month, you can become a patron of Stage Door Live and support the work that we are voluntarily doing. We are not a funded organisation, nor do we consider ourselves a business, so please consider supporting us. We're posting a link in chat now, and it will also be in the description after the show.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please help us grow by letting your friends and followers know. If you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button and give us a like. Take a moment to share this live feed with your friends and followers right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click that bell to keep updated on our new and exclusive YouTube content. Your support helps us continue these important conversations about Irish theatre now and into the future.
We're speaking now to Aideen Howard, the Artistic Director of the ARC in Dublin and a member of the National Campaign for the Arts Steering Committee. The NCFA met with the government earlier this week to discuss the next stage of reopening, so we're keen to find out what was discussed. We are delighted to have you on the show, Aideen.
Thank you. Delighted to talk to you, Kelly.
Kevin, I can't hear Aideen. I'm not sure if that's something that can be fixed. Okay, great. Hi, Aideen. I'll give that a go again.
Hi there. It's really delighted to be with you. Can you hear me, Kelly?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear now. That's great. So I want to start out by mentioning that there was a tweet from the Merrion Street account today providing clarification on the governmental measures for the cultural sector. But that being said, there has been a lot of confusion the past few weeks and cancellation of shows. What came out of the meeting with the government? What have they promised?
Well, you're right to mention what was clarified today, and that's really welcome because I suppose what we in the arts, as you well know, are looking for is some clarity about how to proceed. And the arts, like every other sector in Ireland, has been trying to play its part on the one hand and on the other find ways to open up again. So in advance of Monday's meeting, there was a good deal of confusion arising out of the measures that were introduced 2 weeks ago on the 19th of August. That announcement and the various interpretations of the guidelines led to a great deal of confusion about the nature of the new restrictions and what was meant by them. What were the exact numbers permitted in indoor and outdoor gatherings and so on. So the NCFA issued a statement looking for clarity, requesting a meeting with Catherine Martin, the Arts Minister. And that meeting took place really swiftly on the 21st of August with the Minister and with her officials. And we were very glad to have the opportunity to share the concerns of artists, art workers, producers, festivals, venues, all of whom had been working on new indoor and outdoor programming ideas within the previous guidelines. So in response to the confusion, it was clarified that theatres, galleries, museums and cinemas were considered controlled environments and therefore could allow indoor gatherings of up to 50 people, as long as social distancing could be ensured. But despite the welcome confirmation that 50 are permitted in those environments, there was no mention of music venues, and that issue still pertains. Likewise, it was confirmed that gatherings of no more than 15 were permitted outdoors. So that created some confusion for organisations who had specifically embarked on outdoor events in response to the previous COVID-19 guidelines.
That's
so
the
rising out of
frustrating
that
thing.
meeting,
That's the frustrating thing as well, Aideen, that people were actually focusing on doing the outdoor, productions because they could have more people, and then all of a sudden you have, the Dublin Fringe refunding tickets, because they had sold too many for the outdoor shows and cancelling outdoor shows. So, I suppose that leads me to my next question. Why do you believe there was a lack of communication before? Was it because the government's disinterest in the reality of artists and arts workers, or was it ignorance?
I'm not clear on why the confusion pertained, but arising out of it, I think it's fair to say that we now have a very clear situation, which has led to not just a meeting with Minister Martin, but arising out of that first meeting with her, a very constructive meeting with her colleague at Cabinet, Stephen Donnelly, the Health Minister, and the acting CMO, Dr. Ronan Glynn. So that meeting took place on Monday between the National Campaign for the Arts and the two departments and the officials, and the Arts Council was also in attendance, which was extremely valuable. So what I can say to you arising out of that meeting is that we now have a very good sense that the arts is represented clearly and loudly at the cabinet level. And we were also really heartened by the acknowledgement at just how devastated the arts sector has been, and with the clear recognition from all sides that along with hospitality, we in the arts will be the last to resume business. We also got a very clear indication that Minister Martin is representing our issues with her colleagues very strongly. And I think the fact that the Minister for Health and the acting CMO were both in attendance is an indication of just how seriously those concerns are being heard. So the big action arising out of that is that the NCFA and the arts will now have the opportunity to feed into the long-term strategy for living with COVID-19, which is the new government roadmap, which I understand will be published in a week or two. And so what this means immediately is that we in the NCFA will meet with the Department of Culture on Friday to feed into the new approach for measures which will be introduced after the 13th of September. So because of the way the NCFA works, what that means practically is that tomorrow, Thursday afternoon, we'll meet with all of the resource organisations to consult with them all across the sector, get an indication of what they would like to feed back to the department, and then we'll do that on Friday at our meeting.
Well, that sounds a lot clearer and more positive, which is great. So would you say that the relationship now between the NCFA and Catherine Martin is going to be a strong one, Aideen, based on that meeting? Is it going to be a strong, solid relationship going forth?
We certainly hope so. And all of the indications that we have seen so far would show us that we have a ministry concern.
I'm losing Aideen there now, Kevin.
The arts sector arising out of the last that Minister
Aideen, I'm not sure. It might be your connection, but I've just lost that last answer there. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but we have a bit of freeze happening here, which can happen on a live show. So what I might do is just wait for that connection to come back strong and clear, and before we continue with the interview. Okay, so we're going to move on to our pre-record interview now in the interim, and hopefully we can catch Aideen back after this pre-record. Okay. Apologies for the technical difficulties tonight, folks. But that is the way of the world and the internet sometimes. Okay, so over the weekend, Stage Door Live associate producer Abby Grimstad interviewed Orla Graham and Kirby Thompson, who are artists with the Artists at Work initiative of the Dublin Fringe Festival. These two exciting theatre makers have already made a big impact with their debut production, Occupied. Let's take a listen.
Thank you to you both for being on the show. How are you both keeping? Kirby, how are you?
Really good, yeah, I'm good. The weather's making me a bit sad today, but other than that, everything's good.
And yourself, Orla, are you keeping well?
Oh no, I'm great, Abby. Thank you. Just so happy to be here. And again, the weather's stinking, but we'll power through.
And so tell us about your project. Orla, would you like to start?
Yeah. So Occupied is a show that originally ran at Smock Alley Seen and Heard. We did a 20-minute version of the show at the festival, and it went down a treat. We really enjoyed it, so we decided to develop it further. Occupied tells the story of two women going through the exact same issue or very similar issues in completely different circumstances. They are both people who are dealing with period poverty, which is a massive, massive issue throughout the world, but especially in the island of Ireland. So Kirby and I wanted to write a piece that really opened the conversation in regards to period poverty and the lack of conversation around menstruation and periods as a society. Like, we were shocked at the amount of people we knew who wouldn't talk about it or who felt really scundered about talking about it, something completely natural. So that's where Occupied kind of came from, and that's what motivated us to write it.
Probably when you go here, pads, tampons,
panty liner,
pads, tampons,
sustaining your
pads,
knickers inserted into your vagina,
pads,
panty liner.
Oh, but I brought you your monthly gift, sweetie. You know, your period.
And how did the initial idea start? How did you guys start collaborating? Kirby?
So basically,
or Orla, whoever would like to.
No. Kirby's quite good at telling the story. That's why I was like, go take it away, Kirby.
So Orla and I became friends maybe like 2 years ago now, and I was just scrolling through Twitter one day, like last year, just minding my business, and came across a tweet by Orla that said, "I really want to set a play in public toilets," and I just like sent her a DM and was like, "Let's do it." And she was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's just write it. Why not?" And then about a week later, we met up, went for a wee coffee, and just brainstormed ideas. And then from there, it just grew.
It's a team of all women with actors, designers. Was this a deliberate choice?
I think so, because I think when Kirby and I were discussing like who we wanted to bring on the team, like this is Kirby and I's first project together and creation wise. So we were kind of asking around who we liked, and we felt that it was essential to be able to tell the story as authentically as possible. And we felt like with a team of all women who could understand the script, the struggles that are in the script and the story, we just felt it was important to have a team of women who understood and could care and nurture the story with the most they could. So yeah, we felt it was important.
What does Fringe's support mean for the project at this stage, Orla?
Fringe's support at this stage means that Kirby and I will actually be allowed in a room together for the first time in 6 months, which is mental, absolutely crazy. So to even be given a room to work in is amazing, but to be able to have the support from the Fringe and the Lyric for Kirby and I at such an early stage in our career is so beneficial, because we can turn and ask for like what could we do. Like, it kind of gives us a path that we kind of can see what's going, and we have help to do it. So I guess it's great in that sense that we have help and support from a festival that is so established and does so much for emerging artists and a theatre like the Lyric, who are also so established and are helping support new work. It's just incredible. So it's the support aspect of it really during these times is essential, I think, for Kirby and I, and that we can't thank enough.
So what changes,
Definitely.
Kirby, what changes will come about for Occupied during this development stage?
Well, we're turning it into a full-length production, so about an hour long. That was always kind of an idea we had, and then we took it to Smock Alley, Seen and Heard, and the response from the crowd was like amazing. And we were like, oh, people want us to make this into a longer show? Okay. So we're going to work on that. We have been working on that, but we're going to really knuckle down on it during our week. And just seeing what works, trying things out, just getting together again and meshing our brains together again.
Now, this is your directorial and writing debut for both of you. You've had such success with it so far. So, Kirby, do you have any plans for any other projects with Orla?
Yeah, we've got a few things just like bubbling at the minute. We haven't started anything yet because obviously we're quite preoccupied, excuse the pun. But then
Love it.
Sorry. Enjoyed that
but yeah,
part.
But we've got a few other ideas just sizzling in the background at the minute.
Oh,
that's a hard question.
Some could be named after clothing brands. Some could be named after alcohol. Honestly, the names of our plays are endless.
Love it. You could do a play called Preoccupied.
It's been we've discussed it.
We have discussed it. We'll just make a series. We'll just do a series surrounding Occupied. That's it.
Well, that was a joy to watch. We can't wait to see how Orla and Kirby get on with their development work supported by the Lyric and Dublin Fringe Festival. This interview was edited for our live show, but the extended interview with Kirby and Orla will be posted on our YouTube channel very soon. We'll make sure to link to the Occupied social media accounts so you can keep up to date with their work. So we hope to chat to Aideen a bit later in the show, but in the meantime, we're thrilled now to speak to Dylan Coburn Gray. Dylan is a Dublin-based writer whose work you may have seen on either the Abbey or the Peacock stage. He's here today to speak to us about Malaprop's Fringe show, Before You Say Anything, premiering at Dublin Castle. Welcome to the show, Dylan. Great to have you with us. Your work with Malaprop on Before You Say Anything was a collaborative, devised process. How does the company's method of working inform the piece?
Yeah, I think because one of the first things is that we're a really big crew. There's sort of 7 of us, give or take. I don't think we've all been in the same room in the guts of 18 months. So it tends to happen in sort of little networks of 2 or 3. And what that means is, actually, there's really good things about that, because what it means is you get past the empty page stage really quickly, because someone will have had a conversation with someone where they go, oh, we're really excited about this idea. And then someone else will go, oh, we're really excited about this. And that sort of gets you through like sort of the paralysis of, oh, it can be anything. And it gets you sort of into the fun bit, which is dot joining and sort of finding unexpected congruences or shared themes between things you know you're a bit obsessed with, even if you don't know why you're obsessed with them entirely just yet. And so that sort of means we very often end up with these plays which sort of have these parallel stories, and this is no different. We've sort of got 3 chapters, one in the 1880s, one in the 1980s, and one sort of in the present day. And I think that happens a lot with devising, which is it's really hard to devise sort of a character arc, which is all about one person's psychology. So your plot very often ends up being less elaborative and more contrastive, if that's a word.
It is now, Dylan. That sounds brilliant. I love the description of dot joining. I think that really is quite relevant to devising theatre. So yeah, I'm going to keep that one, dot joining. Okay, so where did the spark for Before You Say Anything come from?
Yeah, I mean, we were starting to make the show sort of in the thick of everything. And for us, that sort of meant like you'd be silly to ignore it, but also you'd be silly sort of just to perform the headlines because the headlines are already so overwhelming. And sort of if people already are feeling a bit informationally deluged and like they're sort of drowning, then you sort of don't want to hold their head under the water. I think we did a program note last year where we said something like, we sort of don't need any more. And so we wanted to sort of take a slightly sideways or usefully oblique perspective on everything that's going on. So sort of our keywords that we landed on fairly early on were public safety and public order, because we felt that sort of cut across lockdown and policing in sort of I think what we were interested in was the way in which public safety and public order really foregrounding the role of policing and I suppose their authorization to use force. And then in terms of making that immediate rather than sort of just a load of footnotes, we ended up on this image of public nudity, because we felt that public nudity is sort of a really interesting proposition in the way that it combines proximity and intimacy, but in ways that are slightly unexpected. You know, because if someone's nude, to be close to them is not necessarily intimate. It feels pretty intimate even if they're 10 feet away. So I think we were interested in bodies and how, historically speaking, medicalized bodies and racialized bodies are sort of on the front lines of the violent end of policing. So all that jolly stuff.
It sounds really interesting. I'm very excited to hear more. That sounds brilliant. So Malaprop was commissioned to create Gulp by the Project Arts Centre as part of their future forecast. And this video piece brought up a lot of uncomfortable things that we've all found ourselves wrestling with, including a sense of informational paralysis. And how are the company's conversations changing from the creation of Gulp to your current process?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're very much coming from the same spirit. And if the pieces look very different on the surface, it's sort of because we try to tailor our content to the forum. You know, we sort of try to always give everything we do our best shot, but to do so in a way that's idiomatic to who's going to be encountering it when. And in that way, sort of Gulp is this short video piece that sort of just takes us through a mood and sort of sits into that headspace of flipping desperately between your tabs, looking for the tabs, looking for the one tab that maybe tells you what you should actually be doing with your life. And it sort of, spoiler, doesn't turn up. And in a way, that to us did feel like a response to everything that's going on. We sort of felt like if you wanted to get into the specifics, you know, if you wanted to get beyond the mood or sort of the affective states that we're all sort of hanging out in loads of the times, you sort of needed more than 10 minutes. You know, you need more than 10 minutes in order to talk substantively and usefully and respectfully about sort of policing or race or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, like there's another universe maybe where Gulp is an act of a 60-minute Malaprop show, because it's sort of about how you put things together in so that they add up to more than some of their parts.
Sorry, I can't hear Dylan, Kevin. The audio has gone for me. Okay, it's fixed. Apologies, Dylan. I just lost the last sentence there. So yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. Because yeah, I think we're always interested in sort of that back and forth between feelings on the world and sort of that, like, you can do a piece that's sort of really, really interior or a piece that's really exterior, but very often the more interesting thing to do is sort of to bounce those two extremes off each other. We sometimes talk about it in terms of levels of zoom. We really like to do things that are sort of extreme close-ups on characters, but then to sort of contrast them with things that are a little more sociological or zoomed out and not chilly, but maybe thinky.
Thinky. Well, I have to say, having watched Gulp myself, it was definitely a very thought-provoking piece. Definitely kind of makes you feel a little bit, I suppose, on edge and uncomfortable examining yourself and your relationship to the internet. And as you say, all those tabs, all those tabs. But it was so effective. And can I ask how many of you guys were involved in making that piece? Was it, again, a little pocket of you, or was it all of you that collaborated to make that?
Yeah, I think it was all of us. I think sort of, again, the nice thing about having loads of people is what it sort of means is there's no normative model from show to show, because so different people can take point at different times depending. And so I think the credit we have on Zoom is written by Claire O'Reilly with Malaprop, which sort of represents the fact that Claire did, I think, the bulk of sort of the thankless work, and also did a lot of the dot joining, to go back to that metaphor. Because I think when I get a named credit with Malaprop, it's because we all sort of put loads of dots on the page, and then I was mostly in charge of sort of making them look like something, joining the dots in a way that sort of makes something or turns them into a container that can sort of hold a thought. And in the case of Gulp, that was Claire. And so yeah, it's sort of nice to have a norm that is, there is no norm.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the piece is only less than 7 minutes long, and you can definitely see the hours and hours and hours of work that went into it, even though it's only 7 minutes long. So congratulations to all of you for making that work. And I would highly recommend to those of you who haven't seen it to go over to Malaprop's website, and it's on there. So definitely have a watch. So before you say anything, it's running from the 6th through to the 11th of September at Dublin Castle, and you guys have a sold out run ahead of you. So for those of us who didn't secure a ticket, are there hopes to tour the show?
Yeah, I think we'd really like that. I think we'd really like to tour if that's sort of safe, if it's possible to do so in a way that lets us sleep at night. I think otherwise the other thing we're really open to, because this is the first time we've sort of done a site-specific show, is the idea that other people might roll it out in other churches or chapels around the world, because that's sort of the nice thing about site-specific things sometimes, which is you can call on the location to play a part. So that sort of does a lot to localize it, even if the script has weird little specificities that you might have to massage to make them fit. But yeah, so I think
if you could on that note, Dylan, if you could pick anywhere in the world, a location in the world that you'd love it to be on, I'm putting you on the spot now, but where would you choose?
Yeah, I mean, I think because chapter 2 of the play is set in 1980s London, and I think it's sort of about I think it's sort of touching on this really, I think it touches on the Irish diaspora in a way I'm really intrigued in, which is that sense of people who left here, but were no less Irish for that, which includes sort of lots of queer Irish people and Irish people of colour. I'd love to see it happen in London, because also there's a really big historical event in the background of the London chapter, which was when the English Collective of Prostitutes occupied a church in King's Cross to sort of protest heavy-handed policing under new stop and search powers they've been given under an update to, I think, the Vagrancy Act of 1924. Feel free to correct me on that. And the ECP still exists. So I think as well, it was really important to us to have that there, because sex workers have very often been another demographic that's always been on the front lines of violent policing. So I think the thought of it maybe going to London and the modern day incarnation of the ECP, getting to see that is a really exciting thought.
Wow, fantastic. Well, I hope that works out for you, Dylan. That sounds great. So obviously the last couple of months have been a very strange time for all of us. Has this time made anything about your own personal practice clearer?
Yeah. I mean, I was sort of lucky in that I had loads of teaching work for the first little bit. So the first part of lockdown to me sort of felt like everyone else getting on my schedule. It was sort of the playwrightification of the workforce, which is welcome to sitting at home every day and hoping that something happens in your brain. And then sort of the teaching work ran out, and exactly the same crisis that everyone else had, but like 3 or 4 months late. But yeah, it sort of really renewed my commitment in that way to teaching and working with young people, and sort of the catch-all term I like for that is working situatedly, because sort of going back to the touring question, which is we didn't set out to write a project that would fit equally well in every setting. It's quite specifically Irish, but in a way where you think, in a way that has sort of something that's almost more easier to localize, because every city in the world will have a minority demographic who fulfill the role that Irish people have fulfilled in sort of 80s London, do you know? So there's equivalencies rather than sort of identities when you're localizing. But in that way, how do I get there from? Oh yeah, working situatedly. I think sort of it's very often better, you know, rather than shooting for some sort of universal audience or universal appeal, to work really, really responsively to where you are. And I'm sort of hopeful maybe that because stagings are so much more difficult and laden down things at the moment, that actually what it might do is it might renew organizations' commitments to sort of work with communities and process-oriented stuff, and to really embrace the fact that making isn't, even if you're commissioned, you just sitting in a room on your own. It's dialogic. It's sort of you working with people and talking to people and working out, I suppose, what's the most interesting version of the story I want to tell right now to these specific people with these specific people. So yeah, which is a bit cheeky of me, trying to cast the show before it exists. But I think, yeah, it would be great if we came out of COVID with more scope for sort of longer processes, which sort of acknowledge the basically collaborative texture of this weird art form that we do.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Well, I know. Yeah, it makes complete sense. And I have to say, it's wonderful to see people creating such magnificent work during this time. And the fact that you've got a lovely sold out run to look forward to, it must be nice to have that as well amidst all of this confusion. So thank you so much, Dylan, for coming onto the show and chatting to us about all of your amazing work, and wish you all the best. And I hope to catch your show when it premieres in London.
Cheers.
Next, we are going back to Aideen. We've got her back, thankfully, because we were right in the middle of a very interesting conversation. So we're going to go back to my lovely questions here that I have for Aideen. Aideen, how are you? It's good to have you back.
I hope you can hear me now.
I can hear you, and it's great. Thanks for coming back to us. And yeah, so we were talking about the clarification, and we were also kind of talking about the relationship that was being established between the NCFA and Catherine Martin, and you were kind of enlightening us on that. Could we kind of go back to that, if that's possible, Aideen?
Certainly. Well, in our two engagements with the new minister, Catherine Martin, I certainly can say that we have the sense that we're dealing with somebody who's very concerned with representing the issues and challenges of the arts at cabinet level, and that's very heartening for us. But I think even more importantly, it's very clear to us that we have somebody who understands our sector and the very particular issues and challenges that pertain in. It was clear in our most recent engagements that she understands that this is a sector that closed very early and will, along with hospitality, be one of the last to resume any kind of normal business. So for us, it's very heartening to hear that. It's also really encouraging to know that other members of Cabinet are being briefed in that way and have a real sense of just how by the pandemic, along with other sectors, notably tourism and hospitality. So we have a good sense that our issues are being heard and are being described and discussed at cabinet level. And now it's a question of how we really manage to input into that, into the future, so that our business really informs how measures are rolled out in the future, insofar as it's a possible context of very public health issues.
Yes. And you mentioned there about Catherine and her team. So obviously there was the 13-point plan that the NCFA put together obviously a few months back. And on point 5, there was kind of this drive to get a dedicated Minister for Culture, Arts and Culture. So that obviously didn't happen with this cabinet. But you guys also wanted to make sure that whoever the minister ended up being would have advisors from the sector itself. Has that conversation happened with Catherine? Have you guys tried to encourage her in that direction?
Well, certainly, as you've outlined in our 13-point plan, we were very clear that we think a minister is always better briefed and better advised when somebody directly from the sector is doing that. That's not to say that the officials aren't really brilliant and professional in their own right, but there is a great distinction between being directly from the sector and advising around it. So we would still be very keen that the minister would consider that. We think it's always an asset to have somebody who's on the ground and really connected with the sector, advising directly in that relation. In terms of the actual brief for the title of the department, I suppose the NCFA position was that we wanted to ensure that a Minister for Culture was retained. For us, the breadth or the width of the actual was the issue. Rather, culture, arts and culture are central. The most important things has happened.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to hear. So from the point of view of the NCFA, what are the next steps for the sector? What can we expect in the coming months?
Well, in the very short term, we will be having a sectoral and resource organisations meeting tomorrow to get some input into our Friday meeting with the department, and that will allow us to advise on possible solutions, possible fixes going forward for measures that might apply to the sector after the 13th of September. So that's the first and most immediate thing. After that, then, we will resume our usual practice of sharing the National Campaign for the Arts pre-budget submission document with all parties and with government. And that process happens annually. It's something we do every year. We create a plan for the forthcoming year and share it with the sector, as well as actually briefing government and all political parties about it. So that's the next stage for us.
Wow, so that you'll be very busy then, Aideen. That sounds like you have a lot to kind of, I suppose, be getting on with.
Certainly, well, that's the business as usual to a point. At the same time, you're in exceptional times, so the two approaches will complement each other.
Yes. So, Aideen, one of the many strings to your bow is that you are the artistic director of the ARC. So you've had personal experience of programming changes. What does this certainty mean for artists' practice and health, in your opinion?
Yeah, this has been a very challenging time for artists. Everybody in Ireland, all citizens have had to, nobody has had a plan that wasn't interrupted, I think it's fair to say. So for artists, though, who are already living a very precarious life, I think this has been an exceptionally difficult time. So changes to any kind of guidelines rep massive interruption to the resumption of normal business. And in the case of the ARC, as you mentioned, we had planned to produce an outdoor show for children, for class groups of up to 30 people in an outdoor environment with a capacity of about 50 people. So the new revisions to guidelines from 2 weeks ago mean that we can no longer do that. However, we have reimagined the show, and we are now to produce an indoor version of the show, which will premiere during Dublin Theatre Festival with our partners in the Theatre Festival. And we hope that the indoor gathering numbers will not change, so that we can guarantee the artists and indeed our audiences consistent proposition, which is the brand new children, which is called What Did I Miss? And it's about a child, a 6th class kid who tries to get all of her class back together to create a graduation show for them in the absence of having had one in real life. And so we hope it's a show that'll be of interest to kids that age, slightly older children, but also families who have missed out on rituals or milestones or all of the other aspects of living and transitioning from one part of life to another. So we hope this will be a show for all of them.
That sounds wonderful. And I have to congratulate you and all of the team at the Arc on what you have done, the Trojan work that you have done both online and the resources that you're providing both to families and to teachers as well. So really, congratulations on that, Aideen. Also, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you back to the NCFA now. How does the NCFA reassure audiences that going to the theatre indoors is going to be a safe experience for them? Because there seems to be a bit of trepidation around that still.
I think there is trepidation for sure, and a survey from the end of June to corroborate that and would give a sense that audiences are going to be quite nervous about figuring out how best to engage in theatre going in the future. And at the same time, I think our colleagues in Kilkenny Arts Festival, in Dublin Festival, in Dublin Theatre Festival, they're telling us that ticket sales are actually very positive for the live events because people are interested, albeit in smaller capacities, people are still interested in live events in a safe environment. So I know, as somebody who's worked in the business a long time, I know that our sector is full of brilliant technicians, brilliant risk assessors, brilliant production teams who are constantly, even in normal times, assessing audience safety, assessing consumer welfare. So I'm convinced that our sector will find brilliant ways to make audiences feel reassured about it, but one way to do it. And after all the planning and risk assessing is done, the real way to do it is actually to roll it out. So I think we're in that phase now with festivals and so on, and organisations like ourselves, the Abbey and Druid starting to resume business. I think we'll now establish an equilibrium and a practice with audiences, which will tell us as much as it will tell them about how best to keep going.
Well, I know from my own, from personally, that I am only dying to get back into a theatre. So I'm sure there's many in the same boat as me, Aideen. Listen, thank you so much for joining us and for coming back to us again. And sorry for those technical difficulties that we had earlier. But I wish you all the best, both with the NCFA and with the ARC. And hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon with more good news.
Many thanks, Kelly.
Conversation between our associate producer Abby and performer writer Timothy O'Mahony, whose play The Story was selected for development by Dublin Fringe as part of the Artists at Work initiative.
Welcome, Timothy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's start kind of talking about how did the Fringe approach you for the Artist at Work series, or did you apply?
Yeah, so initially I had applied to the festival. I suppose I just taking a step back. I had the show had been programmed in the Cork Midsummer Festival for this summer, and so that was the first step of it. And basically, the Midsummer got cancelled. Essentially, well, the Midsummer in its kind of normal form got cancelled. So with that, I just decided then to also apply to the Fringe because I just wanted to kind of I was interested to kind of get, try to get a better platform or a different platform, a bit of a wider platform to bring the show and put it on and stuff. So I applied for the Fringe, and I was hopeful that I would get programmed on it, because you have to be hopeful, you have to kind of believe that your work will get put on or get accepted and stuff like that. So, but then it came the news that obviously the Fringe as well was I suppose, reimagined. And then they offered me the opportunity to come and be a part of it, still like in this kind of development kind of process, I suppose, with the artists and work.
Fantastic. So let's talk a bit about the story. How did that start? Because you've been working on this project for a bit now, correct?
Yeah, I had like I suppose it's actually coming up on 2 years now, and 2 years intermittently working on it, I suppose, is the best way to put it. But initially, I had written a short story, just as just as an exercise, I suppose, in writing, and it was about this. It was about a kind of a serial killer of dogs in the north side of Cork City, which is where I'm from originally. And so then, so I wrote that story, and so then I knew I had wanted to make a new piece of theatre. But I suppose at the time I was thinking it was really important to me to make a piece of theatre that was something that I could essentially perform myself with very little design or very little set or props or anything. And that was deliberate. I wanted to make a piece of work that allowed me to present this work anywhere. Essentially, that was the idea behind it, so that it's very minimalistic, it's very intimate as well. It's meant to be a fun piece. It's meant to be full of action, full of magic, and it's meant to be entertaining and stuff like that as well, but very intimate. And in the world of the play, he very much invites the audience into his world, and we acknowledge the fact that the audience is there and that he's speaking to the audience, and that's kind of the bones of the story, really.
So talking about supports that you've received already with this piece, and then in the supports that you're getting with the Fringe Artists at Work, what supports did you get early on with your project?
So, yeah, I've been very, very lucky, actually. Initially, so when I wrote the first kind of, say, little bit of a draft of the play, I approached Cork Dorka, so the theatre company in Cork, and I approached Pat Kiernan, who's the director there, and I asked him would he help me with it for Show. So Show is this festival for development pieces that Cork Dorka put on every kind of, it's like usually every November, the end of November. So it's basically where down in the TDC, the Theatre Development Centre in Cork, our artists will come and they'll get to show their work and development over the course of a weekend, and audiences come in and there's like a Q&A and there's feedback, and it's a great way to gauge how a piece of work is developing and stuff like that. So that's how it started. So Cork Dorka gave me that opportunity to present the piece. Pat Kiernan helped me with kind of directed the showing of that particular piece as well, and helped me with the script as in a kind of dramaturgical sense. And so that was the first support I had from it, basically. So that happened. That was great. Then after that, I went back to the script just to work away on the script. And next up then was kind of like a conversation with Lorraine May in the Cork Midsummer Festival. So she is someone who I had been having a conversation with over the previous years about previous work, because I always had wanted to put something in the Midsummer Festival because it's like such a great platform, particularly here in Cork City. And so I wanted to be part of that. And so when I spoke with her about this project, she had seen the showing in the Triskel as well, in the Theatre Development Centre. So she had, she was aware of what it was and what kind of style it was and stuff like that. So she, thankfully, she agreed to program the piece in the festival. So that was a big, huge kind of success for me as well, just getting the piece programmed on that platform. And on top of that, then I had Pat Kiernan, who had agreed to direct the piece fully direct the piece for the festival and stuff. So it was a huge kind of win-win for me, getting the support of Pat and Cork Dorka and getting the support of Lorraine in the Midsummer Festival. So, I mean, up until this day, both of them have been hugely supportive of the piece itself and my work as an artist. And
what work will you be doing with them with this Artist at Work series? Is there specific points you want to hit or development that you're going to be focusing on?
Yeah, so mostly like it's coming to the end of finalizing the script, I suppose, and so it's going to be mostly working on the script to make sure that the script is as good as it can be, basically. Pat is very, very good with working on a script, basically. Certainly the best I've ever worked with on a script, without a doubt. So like he's very good at kind of maybe poking holes in a script, if they're there to be poked, like, basically. So what that does then is that it makes me need to go back and re-look at the script, rewrite it, make it kind of sharper, cleaner, better, and just all around a higher quality script that kind of really kind of gets into the detail of the story. I suppose the thing I've learned most from Pat is about the detail, right, and how important that is in the script and in each line. So we'll be doing that, but we'll also be working on kind of getting it up on its feet as well, because obviously there's a lot of it is done as well, and like, so we've had some of it up on its feet before, so making that transition from finishing up being a writer to being a performer, and making it a very clear, there's a very clear line that the writing is ended now, and now I'll be performing and not dipping back into writing, saying, oh, we can change that, that there's a clear kind of definition of that movement from writer to actor, and that's important as well, like, so that you can focus on performing, and we can focus on kind of actually making that performance really, really good.
Next thing I want to talk about is family. So the story is a one-man show which can tour easily. So why was that an important consideration for you at this point in your career?
Yeah, it was important to me because I wanted to make a piece of work that I'm married and I have 2 small children. So I wanted to make a piece of work, and it was really important to me, something that I could tour around and that I could bring my wife and bring my kids, and that we could just go on a little holiday, essentially, even if it was only for a night, even if it was only for a day trip or whatever it was. Like, that was important to me because I suppose it means that I'm, I don't have that much of an interest in going away, doing some acting, and my family being at home. I like to be around my family and stuff, and I love spending time with them. So for me, that was part of the reason I wanted to make a piece of work that I could bring anywhere, that I didn't need anyone to come with me. I didn't need anyone. I didn't need any production. I didn't need any design. I can rock up anywhere. So it's great, like, to be able to have that freedom to, kind of amalgamate my artistic work and spending time with my family.
It's a great realization to have too, because then it really tailors the energy and attention you put towards your writing and your creation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I love the idea of trying to maybe, create an audience for my work, whether it's just in Cork or whether it's kind of nationally, but that I kind of make a name for myself as a writer and a performer who's performing my own work, in the vein of like Sonia Kelly has made work like that before, or even Pat Kinnivan. So to kind of in that vein, to make work and make a name for myself, but just to always ensure that there's a huge deal of quality, and that it's worth it, like that it's worth people coming to see, and that it's worth me putting the time into to make this work as well. That's kind of what I'm looking at down the line. Anyway, I think that's where the best place for me to go is, I think.
I can't wait to see it and hear about how this artist at work is going to affect both you as a creator and an actor and all of that. So thank you so much, Timothy, for joining us. Like, it's just been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much as well. It's been lovely speaking to you, and it's lovely for someone to take the time to listen and just chat and stuff like that. Thanks a million. I really appreciate it.
We'll be keeping an eye out for Timothy's tour of the story, and we'll make sure to share it with you. This interview was edited for our live show, but you'll be able to enjoy the full interview on our YouTube channel very soon. Now I'm delighted to speak to Dan Colley. Sorry guys, I got very excited there and I went too early to introduce my next guests. I'm delighted to speak to Dan Colley and Fionnuala Gygax about their Project 2050. This is a digital production showing online as part of Dublin Fringe and with the support of Fishamble's DUETS scheme. Welcome to the show, Dan and Finnoula. And Finnoula, I already pronounced your name wrong. It's Gygax, isn't it?
Finnoula Gygax.
And I'm only after asking you that, and then I go and do that. So sorry about that. Let's jump in. Let's jump in. I'm going to go to you first, Dan. First of all, can you give us an overview of what 2050 is, please?
2050 is a live improvised game played between one actor and a different special guest performer every time. That special guest performer has not been rehearsed. Often it's somebody that Finnoula doesn't know. Finnoula is the actor. And it starts off in the form of a kind of an interview, I suppose, but the questions are ones that anybody can answer. They don't focus so much on biographical details, although the guests have very interesting biographies themselves. They focus more on the kind of, I suppose, bigger questions, eventually coming around to sort of meditation on like what it is that we value, and then what it is that makes our life meaningful. And then gradually we start to integrate various sort of projections of the future of 2050. And what we as the audience and as the guest and performer together are sort of asked to do is imagine the things that are really important to them in a sort of an ever hostile future, as defined by rolls of the dice and this fun game, I suppose.
That sounds like part exhilarating, part terrifying as well, that you don't know, first of all, Finnoula, who you're going to be speaking to. But it sounds so interesting and something that I haven't heard of before. So Finnoula, where did this idea come from? What inspired it?
It was kind of a few different kind of surreptitious events. That's not the right word. What's the word? Serendipitous, whatever that word is. Around a year and a half ago. Thank you. Around a year and a half ago, I started. I was reading a lot of articles about climate change and the end of the world, and I kind of had a strange, kind of detached feeling about it. It was something that I found hard to kind of imagine and place myself within, and I found that instinct quite interesting, that I might live in a time where we would see, the end of the world, or certainly closer to the end of the world, and kind of question my own place within that. And then last November, I went to Berlin and I saw some theatre over there, and that was playing with a lot of different form. A lot of shows based on games or rules, and I found it really, really exciting and exhilarating watching it because it felt very live, a lot of task-based work, and I left the theatre thinking I'd love to try and make something like that, something that moves away from story or something with a very clear message, although our show has that in one way, but in another way the whole show is a task in a way, and it's a game, and that's how we kind of set it up. And then Dan, around that time, had myself and Dan have known each other for a good few years, but never worked together on a project. We used to be in an improv troupe together years ago for a very short time, but Dan had just finished up with Collapsing Horse, and I listened to an interview he did on the Abbey Theatre podcast, which you should listen to. It's very good. And I just felt that when I listened to Dan, he seemed to have a lot of the same preoccupations or thoughts around art, and more specifically process at the time. And I was really excited by so much of what he was saying, and he was talking about, wanting to make some works in a really short space of time and then other ones elongating the process. And So yeah, I then got asked by This Is Pop Baby if I would take a work in progress slot in the Where We Live festival, which was in March. And I got on to Dan in January when we started this process of the beginning of making this show. And it's adapted a lot along the way because of all the multiple things that have happened in the meantime.
Well, it sounds like it's a creative match made in heaven between the two of you. So yeah, Dan, where did you start? Where do you start creating a piece like this? What does the script, so to speak, look like?
It's thin. There's sections of it that says improvise brackets about 25 minutes. So try and like that, designer. It begins just by iteration. We didn't spend too much time talking about it before we started just trying it out, just getting friends in, getting guest audience members in, because the audience are a significant part of it. This was in the days when we could gather in any room we wanted, basically any numbers we wanted. When we were planning to go up to This Is Pop Baby Where We Live festival, and it's just a matter of trial and error. And so we laid, thankfully, enough of a foundation and understanding of what it felt like to be in that room live, and for Finnoula not to know what question she was going to ask next, for her to really sort of sit into that kind of, I suppose, improv joy fear that I love, and that we shared once when we were in that playback theatre company. And but by the time we had done it, by the time we went into lockdown, we'd done it enough that we were familiar with it that it became an obvious sort of adaptation to Zoom. We did like one trial where we were like, okay, let's see if this thing even works on Zoom, and it was like remarkable. In fact, Abby, one of your colleagues, was part of that that test that we did, and we made that decision of. We were just like, oh, this feels like a live show. It feels like an audience giving their attention and heightening something that would otherwise be dead if they weren't there.
Yes.
And so it seemed to have all of the hallmarks of what we loved about theatre, and in a show that was about trying to save the things that are meaningful to you, to try and maintain and nurture the things that make your life meaningful. Ours is art, ours is theatre, ours is transformation. So, in this hostile environment that was COVID, we had this opportunity to make this piece of theatre that was resilient to COVID and could probably be resilient to different kinds of things in the future. So it just seemed like an opportunity we couldn't turn down. I want not to say the thing I want to say, which is that COVID is the best thing that happened to the show. It's not. It's a terrible thing. But in terms of asking audiences to think about the sudden shocks that are going to change their lives out of nowhere, that are just going to upend what they think is normal, that's gone from being something that was like, yeah, tell me more about that, Guardian, to, oh, that's my life now.
Enter stage left, sudden shock, COVID-19.
Exactly, yeah. Pursued by a sudden shock. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, Finnoula, is it somewhat structured, or do you have to keep it flexible depending on the guest that you have?
Yeah, we found, over the last number of months, we've done test performances with test audiences and guests, and so we had a lot of time to really experiment and play, and so throughout that time we have found a type of structure, but building blocks kind of where you might get to, but in the midst of that, as Dan said, our script says 20 to 25 minutes of improvisation. And that's sort of the way that we wanted the show to be. And for whatever weird reason that I, as a performer, I wanted an experience that felt live and that had the flexibility of failure and awkwardness and silence of not being able to think of the next question. And because we see those types of things in the theatre, we see the mistakes and stuff like that. And I suppose during COVID, everything is very structured and rigid in a way, in routine. And so as much as I don't want to look like an idiot or anything, I'm kind of up for the potential failures that could occur. Now, hopefully we've done the show enough that it's sort of in our bodies and our minds, you know. So while there is some structure, there's a huge portion of it that is improvised and totally based on the energy of the guest on that night, who we will meet like this, you know, and try and get a sense of that person through a screen, and also the audience. You know, the piece involves the audience. They're totally part of the experience, and you know, they influence the show too. I won't say too much about that, but you know, it's all kind of the symbiotic relationship between all of us who are just happen to be in this grid. So all of those things affect it, in the same way that you could go and see a show one night and have an audience who laugh for the whole show and another audience who will be totally silent. So there's so many kind of variable factors, and depending on how I feel on a certain night, I might ask questions that come from wherever. I don't know where they come from, but so there's a lot of kind of dependables. But yeah, there's some bullet points to sort of mark-ish. I mean, the show is an hour, so we have to kind of finish on the hour. Do you know what I mean? It won't be 12 hours.
Think the audience, I think the audience is probably going to go in quite excited, you know, because of the unpredictable nature of the show, you know, and you might find that the audience, knowing that, will actually look after you as a performer, knowing that you're up there, not knowing what's going to happen. That can happen with audiences where they kind of nurture the performer as the performance goes along. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the reaction on that, you know. So Dan, I'm coming over to you again. You have an amazing list of guest collaborators joining Finnoula on stage. Did you have a wish list of people that you approached?
Yeah, we definitely had a wish list. One of the things that we wanted was that, you know, over the course of 13 shows, a different person every night. That's a great opportunity to sort of capture a diversity of voices. So we had a rule that basically everybody who's a guest is in some way demographically different to Finnoula, in terms of age, in terms of I suppose generational age, in terms of race, in terms of sexual orientation, identity, and a couple of other factors. And so really, we were just trying to get a sort of a representative spread of the population, and really, we were so lucky in that we decided that, you know, the people who would do it ought to be a performer in some way, you know, that they're not necessarily people who aren't used to at least public speaking or interviews or presentation or whatever. A few of them are actors or performance artists. So Raymond Keane is one of them, Amanda Coogan is another. But then we also have television presenters like Zainab Belende, who is Zainab Boladale, I should say, who is a presenter on Primetime. We've got a performance poet, Felicia Lusanya. So really, we made that list of like, well, who would we absolutely love to see in this? And we went for those people. One of them was Travis Alabanza. You know, we really wanted to have somebody on it who was an artist who wasn't from the island of Ireland, because of Zoom gave us that opportunity because it's on the internet, and also somebody who was trans or non-binary. And when we were discussing it, we were like, if we were reaching for the stars, we'd say Travis Alabanza, right? And then we just, you know, wrote info at and then got a response from them. So it was just one of those lovely things. It's just connected with people, and they've sort of stepped up and said, yeah, I'm curious about that. So they'll approach it with that curiosity, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, what were their reactions, and are they a little bit scared about what might happen, or are they more on the excited side?
I hope they're scared. Yeah, they should be scared. They would be crazy if they weren't. Cue
Eva laugh from the director.
The thing we say to them is that the show works no matter what the guest does. What the guest does is a bonus, and so we've been really lucky to have really bonusy guests who bring a lot of themselves to it. But if they were hungover and monosyllabic that day, then I think the show would still work.
Okay, great.
No
That's good.
Dan. They could be watching.
Don't be putting ideas into their heads.
Finnoula would have to work a lot harder. They couldn't both. A lot harder. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Finnoula, speaking of all these, like, you know, this talk of being scared, like, do you have any anxiety about the show, or does the unknown element of it, like, excite you? Is that what floats your boat?
I'm some weird person that gets a thrill off fear, I think. And yeah, the answer is I am scared and I am anxious. Dan can attest for that. It's definitely like a few days before preview. If you looked in our rehearsal room window today, it involves curled in body language and nail biting. But at the same time, it's the sort of show that I wanted to make, and I have to sort of trust that we've had a long process that has included a huge community of people who've given up their time to be test audiences and guests, which we're so grateful for. And we've gotten feedback and we've gotten people who have engaged. And, you know, as scary as it is, I hope it will resonate with audiences. And I think it will, and it'll be something different. I think in this mad COVID time, I'm kind of proud that we managed to make something that feels, you know, true to our intention despite it all. And but yeah, short answer, that's me babbling, because short answer is, yeah, I am scared.
Well, I think you're extremely brave, and I think the audience will feel that and know that as well going in. So I do hope they look after you. So this is my last question, and it's to both of you. So I'll come over to you first, Dan. I suppose, in a few words, what would you like people to take away from the show?
A sense of bracing, realistic, resilient hope.
Wow, that's great. Okay, good luck, Finnoula. Yeah.
I need to finish this call, so that's why it was so short.
I want people to come away with the questions that come up, whatever they might be on the night, lingering just for far longer. The theatre, I think that's the best type of work, and I want them to feel that they were part of a communal experience for the hour, be it through Zoom.
Well, there you go. Take that, Dan. Her answer was just as good. Brilliant. Okay. So listen, guys, I wish you all the best with that amazing show. And I hope to chat to you guys again on further collaborations that you do, because it sounds like you guys make really great work together.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This is a lot of fun.
Break all the legs. Break all the legs.
Will do.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you so much to Dan and Finnoula. So tickets are still available to experience this exciting show. So we'll provide a link to Dublin Fringe Festival's virtual box office after the show.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please help us grow by letting your friends and followers know. If you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button and give us a like. Take a moment to share this live feed with your friends and followers right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click that bell to keep updated on our new and exclusive YouTube content. Creating live content is a costly endeavour. If you'd like to help us keep the conversations going, please hop on over to our Patreon page, where you can become a patron and gain access to exclusive patron-only content. patreon.com/TheatreMakerIE. You can find us on most social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at TheatreMakerIE. And catch additional news, blogs and sector coverage on our website, theatremaker.ie. Watch this space, There's more exciting content on the way from theatremaker.ie.
This afternoon, American magician David Blaine fulfilled a childhood dream. He attached himself to a bundle of helium-filled latex balloons and lifted off to 24,000 feet in the air. One at a time, he dropped 5-pound sandbags that were attached to his waist back towards the ground, which allowed him to gain more and more altitude. After he reached 18,000 feet, he entered what is called Class A airspace. This is controlled airspace where airliners fly and where he required air traffic control clearance. At 19,000 feet, he donned on an oxygen mask as at that point in the atmosphere, the air is thin. At 24,000 feet, he released 2 safeties and began a free dive before pulling his parachute at 7,000 feet off the ground. On the way up, he talked to his daughter via radios. When he landed, he said, "This is all for you. Je t'aime." She actually got to see her dad fly from a bundle of balloons. 2 years of planning had come together with a huge safety team behind them. A couple of weeks ago, our sector was at sea level, and one at a time, the government removed another 5-pound sandbag from our waist. There are still several sandbags hanging there in the form of restrictions, but our safety teams seek clearance to lift us up a little higher towards our goals, our better normal. It has been amazing the last couple of weeks to learn about the work that artists across Ireland and around the world are doing as part of Dublin Fringe Festival. Some works presented online, others in person, but no work the way we are used to. It has challenged us to find a traffic pattern that brings us back and not into the dangerous cliffs nearby. There will be setbacks along the way, and there have been. There will be safety checks as well to make sure our return is safe for all involved. Those on stage, those behind the scenes, and the audiences that come to be moved and entertained. The currents of the pandemic will eventually not guide our ascent, and we will be free to freefall, fly towards our dreams, with a new experience on our belts and a little less weight pulling us down, and hopefully with a clearer path forward. Here to leave us with a reading of the Mother's Voicemail from their play Don't Kill Spiders is the wonderful Witt Tarantino. Witt is an actor and writer who recently finished his studies at the Lear Academy in Dublin. On our episode on the 27th of May, we interviewed Peter Reid about the Lock-In, a new work festival taking place at the International Bar. You can see Witt's work and much more in person and online, including tomorrow a play by my colleague and the other host of Stage Door Live, Amy Kidd. We'll provide the link for you in the description box. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week at 7 p.m.
Hi, I'm Witt Tarantino, and this is an excerpt from a play I wrote called Don't Kill Spiders, which is premiering next week, September 9th, at the Lock-In for Reboot Live. Hello, Percy! Your father and I just wanted to check in, see how the new apartment is going. Hope you didn't have any trouble and you're in there unpacking and settling in. It's pelting down rain here, so you got out just in the nick of time. Listen, I slipped a 20 into your box marked books. Order dinner out tonight on us. You have enough on your plate, and tomorrow is a big day. First day at your big boy job. Let me know if you need any help finding a roommate. I can post your spare room if you want, but I'm sure you've got it covered. Well, I better let you go. Oh, one more thing before I do. That beige shirt I bought you, it looks so good, so professional, so poised, so positively percolating with capital potential. I think it's essential that that's what you wear. And do something with that nest you call hair. You're creative, we get it, we're all so aware, but a little water and gel will get you less stares. Don't be too flashy. Frivolity is frowned upon by men. Fashion frugality is the name of the game when it comes to attracting a respectable flame. What a shame the last one didn't stick. But if you ask me, he was always a bit of a prick. Oh, would you listen to me prattle? Gossip was always my vice. Father Jones says it isn't nice. Gave me a parable to meditate on. Something about a woman and feathers. Ugh, no, it's gone. I'm rambling again. It's what the Wilson women do. Whatever about your ex. Back to you. Please, call me or text after your lovely first day. And if you get lonely, remember, I'm only a phone call away.